right, well, welcome everybody. I'm Julie Quinn. I work for Deloitte Consulting, and over the last couple of years, we've had the pleasure of working with the California Department of Parks and Recreation on their transformation effort. And we put forward this idea of presenting to you for this conference because of the great work that the department's done in transforming not only some of the internal processes, but also engagement with external stakeholders, and really beginning to shift the culture of the department. And so today I have the director, Lisa Mangat, here. I'm going to read a little bit of her bio. She's going to present some of the lessons learned throughout that process, and we will get some feedback from all of you on your opinions and perspective on those lessons learned. So Lisa was named director for the department on April 20th, 2015, after serving as deputy or acting director since 2014. She previously served as a special assistant to the director of DPR in 2013. So she's had several years of experience working with the department, but about a year and a half as the director. Lisa's broad state government experiences are a benefit as the department moves forward in the transformation, and some of the other places that she's worked have really played a part in the success of the transformation. Prior to coming to state parks, Lisa was a program budget manager at the Department of Finance. She also served as a senior fiscal and policy analyst at the Legislative Analyst's Office and was a principal consultant for the California Legislature. So a very interesting background when it comes to transformation and having to work with different control agencies as you make change. Next slide. So let's find out who's here in the room. And we're going to use the Poll Everywhere technology. So we have the first question up. Hopefully we've had some trouble with the Poll Everywhere site today, so if this doesn't work, we are going to do the old-fashioned method. Is it coming up? No? Half of it? All right. Well, if it comes up, we'll deal with that then. So, by raise of hand, because we'll go the old-fashioned way, because if technology doesn't work, you have to have a backup plan. How many of you have been with the state of California and state service for less than 5 years? Can you raise your hand? All right. How many of you have been in service between 6 and 15 years? Wow, okay. And then how about 17 to 25 years? Anybody over 25 years? All right, wow, number, quite a few. Terrific. The next question we were gonna ask is, how long have you worked for your current department? So how many of you worked for your current department 0 to 5 years? Okay, so a lot of you are new to your departments. How many of you have worked for your department 6 to 15 years? Okay, handful. How many of you worked for your same department over 15 years? Okay. Wow, that's great. And then we just want to get a sense of the level of folks in the room. How many of you are at the analyst level, SSA equivalent level? Anybody in the room? Okay, a couple. What about at the manager level? All right, what about division chief-ish level? Deputy directors? Okay, we have a couple deputies. Any directors? Or agency secretaries? Is the governor here? Just checking, see if he is, you never know. Okay, so that gives us a sense of who's in the room, and thank you for that, because it just, as Lisa's talking about the different lessons learned, there's different ways that people within an organization can affect change, and some of it depends on your level, some of it depends on your tenure, some of it just depends on your personal passion and energy, and so we'll try to hit on all the different levels, but if you have questions, we can certainly take those as we go. All right, so Director, can you take it away and provide the background on parks transformation?
Sure. Thank you, Julie. First of all, I just want to tell you, if it looks like we all know each other and get along, it's because through philanthropic support, we were able to secure the services of Deloitte Consulting. And as you see, as I talk about kind of the transformation effort happening at the department, you'll see that they've been a really key partner. So the director of the Department of Parks and Recreation, what does that have to do with transformation, technology, and innovation, all the things that we've gathered here to talk about? I can tell you in my 20 years of public service with the state of California, I've never seen kind of a situation quite like this. And when there's such a holistic effort to transform and reform an entire organization. And I'm not talking about one IT project. I'm not talking about automating timesheets or revising the budget, and we're doing all of those things. But really looking from the bottom up. And not just doing it, doing a whiteboard exercise, but actually engaging with staff, engaging with leadership, looking outwards and talking to other control agencies, talking to legislative folks, but really even the trickiest part is engaging the public. So think about the Department of Parks and Recreation, think about your own organization and the culture that you have. Most of you have had some relationship with the department, whether it be because you like to go boating, because you like to hike on a trail, because your family has a long family legacy of camping in our parks, but you have warm, fuzzy feelings about the department. So let me tell you kind of how we found ourselves this way. Some of you may recall that around 2012, we found ourselves as an organization in the state of California in a place where none of you ever want to be as an organization in the state of California. You may recall during tough fiscal times, Governor Brown proposed the closure of 70 parks across the state of California. There were many, many budget reductions throughout the state, and it was a very, very tough time. And then you may recall that we had all of these partners that came out who were passionate about their parks, right? People have a personal relationship with these places. And we even had a story about a little elementary child who showed up with jars of pennies to donate to the state to keep their park open. So imagine that that's the landscape. And then imagine that it is discovered that there was a misreporting of funds. And that in actuality, we as a department had more funding than we had been reporting to the Department of Finance. And you can imagine how all of that unfolded from there. You know, to not really kind of share with you that so much of what we're doing is really trying to earn back the trust of decision makers, the trust of the public, the trust of our employees is really an understatement. I think it's so important to kind of really share that. So imagine that we find ourselves in this place. And imagine that the governor has a tax initiative on the ballot. And imagine that the public is really wanting to see that we're doing our good governance, right? And we're doing the right thing with our resources. And that we've got all the checks and balances in place. So what the state of California did was established a Parks Forward Commission. It was essentially a blue ribbon commission that was going to take a look at our organization and review it from the top down. We also had investigations, and we had audits, just about every flavor of audit and investigation of our admin shop. And as you know, all roads eventually lead to admin, and it's very difficult to find great admin people. And we lost a lot of really good people. And then also imagine that the culture of us at parks. People have a family legacy of working at parks. They consider themselves as parks family first and state civil service person second. So they're very, very passionate about what they do. We have employee housing, so you raise your children together. So now imagine that you're at the Thanksgiving table and you have to hear rough comments about your organization. So a lot of it was about making sure that our people have renewed pride in the organization. So when I talk about transformation, it's not just technology, it's also really the sociology and the anthropology of transformation. And I think if we don't really talk about that, you really miss the boat, and it's really not going to be sustainable, and you're not going to really do anything of real, of something of great meaning that we all hope to do as public servants. Okay. So the new Parks Forward Commission was established here in 2013. They released a report. They had various findings, and their themes were fairly high level. Hey, department, we want to see you get back to making more meaningful connections with the public that you serve. all Californians, not just the normal people who already love us and have a relationship with us. We want to see you really lean in. We want to see partners. We want to see you be more innovative and amplify the resources, and by really embracing really new innovative partnerships. We also want to see you put in new business and IT systems and budget systems. So here's an example. One of the things that the auditors highlighted for us is that we weren't giving our top budget leaders out in the field their budgets until November. That's months after our heavy expenditure season. And guess what? We got our budget just the same day you get your budget, July 1st. But imagine that you're out in the field and you're not getting it until November. So those were the types of things that were highlighted and that we focused on resolving. The governor, in response, established what was called a transformation team. So the word transformation is part of our genetic makeup. We've been living, eating, and breathing this. So my hope with today, I think you're getting a lot of good information out there today, but my hope is I want to share with you lessons that I've learned as a new leader in transformation and kind of what I would tell Lisa of 2014 or 2015 as we embarked on this.
Another point to highlight, I think, would be how many eyes were watching what would come out of this.
There were a couple. So we spent a lot of time, there were oversight hearings. The Little Hoover Commission did a report and made some recommendations. The California Research Bureau. Every time I went and got in front of the Sacramento Bee or traveled the state and did editorial boards, the first place that we started with was the notion of hidden funds. And what are you doing? What are you doing about it, and why isn't it faster? More, faster. I mean, all of those things. This Parks Board Commission has had several commission meetings, and where we go, and I go personally, and talk about and give them an update. Every single governor's budget, as you know, there's the math of the budget, but then there's also the narrative of the budget, where the governor establishes the highest priorities for various agencies. And so for parks, the governor has been extremely clear, the expectation that we be held accountable for all of these transformative changes. There's over 30 initiatives. And depending on how you break them down in the subcommittees that we've assembled, it's 30, it can become,
I think it's now up to 60.
60 initiatives. And we talk about all of them. The other thing that we did is we established a website, and that, you can imagine, makes you nervous, right? Can you imagine that you have your schedule, your product delivery schedule, and all of a sudden you're going to put them on the website for the world to see? But it was important that we do that. It was important not only for the public to be able to hold us accountable, but for our own staff, because much of what we were talking about, it was not new to the staff. And they've heard it before, they've been through it before, and it's not unreasonable for them to have effort fatigue. So it was really important as a leader and a director of the department to really establish that this was different and it was going to be unlike any of the prior efforts. So one of the things that you do is we had a tracking document out there that listed out all of the initiatives, who owned the initiatives, what our timeline was, and we actually make decisions based on it. Every single week, we have a coordination meeting where we go through that and we decide where are we falling behind. And you have those tough conversations, and then you reallocate your resources and you move your support where you need to. So that was, I think, a really important piece of this.
Yeah, do you want to give a flavor of the types of projects of these initiatives entailed?
We have not really been known for having really robust, real-time budgeting systems in the department. One of the things that there were a lot of questions about us. How much does it cost to run a park? How much does it cost to have a natural resources program? How much does it cost to have an interpretive program? And we really, really struggled to answer that question. Or actually, correction. I would say we would answer the question, but if you ask the same question a week later from a different person, we might give you a different answer, which is almost worse than saying we don't really gather our data in that way, right? Because it gets to that notion of credibility. So one of the largest projects that we're doing is called service-based budgeting. And I hate the title because it immediately makes folks' eyes glaze, roll back to their heads. But we have a culture of scarcity. Our park system is under tremendous stress. And our park leaders feel that they have to make these really tough decisions out there. Most of you come to the parks and you have a wonderful time, as you should. But we also have $1 billion plus deferred maintenance. And when you start calculating over $1 billion, that's an artful number, right? Over $1 billion. And we're not unique in state government, but what that really tells us, kind of similar to you in your home, is that if you're not doing kind of the basic maintenance, then you're having to replace the entire roof, right? You have major problems, and that's kind of where we have found ourselves. And so people come and they have a great experience, and our folks are making really tough managerial decisions out in the field. Service-based budgeting is going to help us be really precise with the resources that we already have, which I think is an important thing for us and for the public. But the other thing it's going to do is it's going to really reveal the types of decisions that we make, right? All of you, just like in your personal budget or your work budget, you have finite resources. You can't do everything that you want to do, but you have to make decisions. You have to prioritize. And that's kind of the fun part of being a manager, right? And you have to be able to explain why you made those tough decisions. And so now we can do that. So not only can we say, hey, we're hiring these people because this is our priority, we're going to talk about why we made the tough decisions that we've made. Maybe why we're not doing this, or if we're going to put 2 more lifeguards at Huntington Beach, what does that mean that we can't do? Because it's a finite piece of pie, right? So I think with my experience in budgets, I probably kind of had a different lens when I looked at this. It's so very important in how you tell the story about yourself as an organization. And one of the things that I found is that was one of our highest priorities of our staff. Is our staff felt that they were kind of crying into the wind and really had a hard time kind of articulating what it is that we do, what are our priorities, and kind of the challenges that they face as managers, but also to celebrate the fact that they accomplish so much under these circumstances. And so I think that that was an important part of it too.
Great. And I would just add, just some other color commentary, other types of projects include things like partnerships and setting up an office of partnerships to better work and improve the relationship between the department and the external business partners that Parks works with. Another project was building the community liaison program and the historic liaison program to provide additional resources that help with cultural and interpretive access to by different communities to the park. So the projects and the initiatives ranged quite a bit from internal nuts and bolts to kind of what I would call more sexy customer-facing activities as well.
And it's really interesting, depending on your audience, what they care about. Mm-hmm. Some audience, all they care about is service-based budgeting. That's where it's at for them. Other audiences, all they want to know is, are you standing up the new national model for interpretation, right? Because parks provide a really unique opportunity for us to bring California history to life. And we're not doing it as much as we should, or as much as we'd like to. And so that history project was very important. It's a 2-year pilot project. And sometimes when you're trying to transform an organization, you can get people to take a chance on a pilot, you know? But you have to be able to measure, what does success look like? And then you have to find somebody who's credible, like maybe UCLA, to measure outcomes and measure what does success look like. Because our goal is to scale it up more broadly across the system. So we'll be back before the legislature and decision makers in a couple of years. The community liaison project she's talking about, our next park is going to be an LA Historic Park. And if you haven't been there, we're going to probably be opening it this spring. It is a new urban park. So if you think of parks, California state parks, and you think of the coastal vistas or you think about the redwoods, I really challenge you to think even bigger than that. That the LA Historic Park is right across from Chinatown, if you're familiar with it, and it's an old rail yard area. And what we've done is we've created a new park. And we just didn't build the park that Sacramento envisioned, but we actually sat down and did a lot of community engagement meetings and got to know the community and the people there and how they wanted to use this place so that we could make sure that we were building the park for the community, and that encapsulated kind of like what the public was looking for. And so making those strong, that's where you also increase our relevance, and we're making stronger connections with more Californians. So I have to tell you, you're going to hear us talk a lot about relevancy and making more connections with more Californians. Why is that so important? Is it just a nice thing to do? Well, it is a nice thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. But we are not DGS. We are not the state controller's office. We exist based upon a dream of people 150 years ago. Someone and some folks got together and realized that we should protect some of these places, and that we really needed to lean in on that. And so the system grew to be 280 parks, and so we owe a tremendous debt to those people. Had they not done that, today if this meeting was about how to create a system of 280 parks with the types of assets that we have now that are available for us and our children and our children's children, can you imagine us trying to do that? But people only take care of what they value. So if every year we have a larger percentage of folks that don't experience the great outdoors and don't come and enjoy parks, we lose out on one of the absolutely essential support systems for this department. So that's why relevancy and making sure that we're making connections to more people is absolutely critical to the survival of the system.
Okay, and before we get into the lessons learned, you want to talk a little bit about the handoff from the transformation team to the rest of the department? So
the transformation effort was a 2-year effort. And so now in this governor's budget in January, the governor announced that, they finished their 2-year term, and here's a bunch of accomplishments, and we'd like to nod, celebrate them, but there's a lot of work to do, and now the department owns this, and this is going to be the department's priority going into the future. So one of the things that we're doing is we're actually creating a group of people that all they do is make sure that we are furthering and advancing the ball when it comes to transformation in the organization. And it's such a new idea, we haven't even named it yet, but we realized that you really needed a group to be thinking that, and that a director needs the support to make sure that we're continuing on that path.